Hello everyone, welcome to another Overrated Film Saturday, and today I thought it would be interesting to discuss two films in particular, one being the original film and one being a sequel, to a very popular TV show that I believe started in the 90s. It might have continued into the early 2000s as well, and further, but I remember when I was growing up, when I was little, I would see previews of the show, and already I would get awkward because it's just the title of the show, especially when my parents were sitting right next to me. So, without further ado, let me discuss the Sex and the City movies. Oh yes, these movies. They largely appeal again to the female demographic, and since we are in the month of love, I thought it would be interesting to discuss things that are a little bit more on the feminine side, and also things that sort of are kind of overrated and overemphasized on the feminine side. And since Sex and the City largely focuses on romance and things of that nature, I thought it would be interesting to address this one in particular. And yes, I considered both movies, as well as the TV show, to be a chick flick. I think they don't have a whole lot of quality to them, and I think that they are just designed to appeal to women's egos. So, without further ado, let me address why I feel these films are overrated. Now, some might be saying, but Michelle, they got such bad reviews. How could these possibly be looked at by the public as good? Well, you kind of got to look at the box office numbers here, and these are huge box office numbers here, people, so brace yourselves. First movie grossed over $415 million at the box office. Over 415 million. Usually movies don't get that high. Usually films like this tend to be around more where Nicholas Sparks films are, like within the 60 range, which is still a lot of money, significant still amount of money. But as high as it was is still mind-boggling. With a budget of only 65 million. So again, it way over amounted its budget for what it ultimately ended up getting. So it was a huge margin to me, and I think partially has to do with the fact that the show was very popular. A lot of women really liked Sex and the City, the show, and wanted to sort of experience it on the big screen, which is sort of understandable because I'm sure people who have watched the show or who have heard of the show and who are in large part female were invested in this film being put into a movie, which I think was definitely a brilliant marketing tactic. I mean, if you've got a popular TV show and you want to run on it and see if you can get more viewership and more fans from the film by making a film out of it, why not? I mean, literally, when I saw the previews, I was like, that's a brilliant marketing tactic. That makes sense to make it. And I can totally see why these box office numbers are so exponentially higher because of that. Because it was a very popular TV show. Now, the sequel, it made less, but it still made a lot of money. Over 305 million at the box office, with a $95 million budget. So that's still a lot of money. That's still a significant portion of money. A lot of people went and saw the sequel. A lot of people went and saw the original film. In particular, the demographic that they were marketing to. So, again, I think largely, and the huge reason for this is because of the TV show. And this spawned a sequel, obviously, because the first film was so successful. And even though the sequel made less, it still made a lot of money. Now, it has garnered a lot of criticism. It has low percentages across the board on different movie reviewing websites, but regardless, it still managed to make a lot of money. A lot of people went in and got into the seats. And I think this clearly shows that it's overrated because, you know, it's not like the first film was like, okay, we don't need a sequel. It's not like that they just made the one film and then stopped. They went on and continued because they were gambling on the idea that it would still make a significant amount of money, which it did. So nothing really changed as a result of people's perceptions, really, or at least the demographic that it was trying to appeal to. They still went and saw the movie again, the sequel again. Went back into the theater again to see the sequel. But yeah, that is, I think, a huge incentive, especially the fact when you can put the Sex and the City label on it. If you can put it in, your demographic will go and see it because people that are within this kind of market want to see these kinds of films. And I think what I was saying in regards to ego, when it comes to marketing to women, it has pretty much all of the areas fairly narrowed down when it comes to this demographic, because what does Sex and the City have in it as a show? It's got shopping, it's got, in particular in the second film, there's traveling. Now, I'm sure there might be some traveling that was involved within the show, maybe within the first film as well, but traveling, I think, was a huge incentive for people to go see a sequel because, oh, they're going to focus more on traveling now, which is a huge appeal to women. Women love to travel. I love to travel. Again, men love to travel too. This is not just a gender thing, but I think it largely appeals to females because females, I think, are more inclined to want to travel. Whereas men, it's kind of like, yeah, I can go travel if I want to, and they don't. And I think largely that's an emotional thing, because you just see how beautiful everything looks and how nice it is, traveling, going somewhere, luxurious or exotic. That really appeals to women. So, and again, I think they go to Dubai at one point, somewhere just exotic. So it makes sense that they would insert traveling as part of appealing to the demographic. Boys being another big one. Sex and the City is largely based within, again, trying to insert romance. In particular, what's in the title, lustful relationships as well. So it is appealing to that woman ego, because, ooh, I can go shopping and spend whatever money I want. Ooh, I can go traveling and spend whatever money I want. Ooh, there's a boy that will, this very sexy boy that will pursue me. And it's all appealing to that higher ego of putting women on this pedestal, I think. And that's why a lot of women, I think, got suckered into it, because it's appealing to what they like. They like to travel, they like shopping, and they like boys. Or men, I guess you could say, because it's, again, largely focused more on older men. These women are a lot older. They're actually in their 40s, I think, 30s. So, again, it is, but again, still younger women will go see this because, again, it has all of these qualities that appeal to women's ego and making them feel empowered. Also, there's a huge emphasis on luxury within the Sex and the City movies, because everything is so glamorous. They make everything look like it's like living in a luxurious, mansion. Like, they make everything seem like how life, this is how what life is supposed to be like. When in reality it obviously isn't. And again, they're sort of trying to appeal to, I think, women's ego in that way by bringing in these things of luxury and, sophistication and, just everything is refined, everything's clean, there's nothing that's not perfect, so to speak. And women like that. Women like a little bit of luxury. It doesn't mean, again, and I'm not really a luxury person myself. I mean, I like simple things, but again, it is appealing to that higher ego of, ooh, I live in this fancy mansion and I do this and I have this really cool job and blah blah blah. So it is appealing to their ego, and that's why I think a lot of women bought into these two movies. Um, and that's why I think largely in part it is overrated, because it appeals to women but doesn't it doesn't incorporate things that are part of sort of reality and sort of reflect onto um, women characters, because these characters don't, throughout Sex in the City, they're not really all that interesting. They're not all that well fleshed out. Sometimes they're just too self-absorbed for my taste. Um, and that really bothered me a lot about the show, and really what bothered me about the films was because they were trying to appeal to an ego and not on trying to be good films and provide good stories, interesting characters, and whatnot. It's all based on appealing to the demographic, not on trying to create a good story. So that's what I think was a huge issue with Sex and the City when it comes to being a film series or of films, and I think is really what bothered me a lot about Sex and the City. And I don't think, again, I don't think I don't think it's harmful. I don't think this is like 50 Shades of Grey where it's kind of just messed up. Like it's very it doesn't try to touch in on something like really bizarre and twisted like 50 Shades of Grey does. But again, I think it does have some sort of harmful maybe ideas in there of ego and thinking that life is supposed to be this crazy luxurious ride, when really in reality life is a little bit more complicated than that. And it's not all based on going around shopping, traveling, pursuing men constantly, and obtaining luxury. There's a lot more to life to enjoy, and there's a lot more meaning that can come out of the things that they talk about, like shopping, traveling, boys, and luxury, than what they express within Sex and the City. And it doesn't try to hone in on, the idea of, of maybe women being lonely or women feeling isolated, or, maybe women going through something. It's all pandering, hunky dory, nothing bad goes wrong, and it's everything's about me, and I have everything, and life is perfect, and watch me sailing on this lovely, or going on this camel ride, or watch me going and doing this, and we'll make some little jokes in between, and we'll get a little tee-hees, but really there's nothing else that Sex and the City has to offer, and I think that's a huge problem, and that's why I believe these films got so overhyped for what they were, because people took away the idea of the fact that they could actually tell a good story, and instead fill it with a bunch of filler, because I mean a lot of the things that go on within the film are just, and within the TV show, they're just filler. They're not even part of the story. And when they do insert something part of the story, it does feel like it does feel like at points that it maybe tries to take its audience a little bit more seriously, but then it just completely goes into pandering again, and pandering territory. But again, I think you know, I mean, I just don't think that being spoiled is just something that's for me. You know, I don't need to have this huge amount of um of you know um I just don't need a lot of what is expressed in Sex and the City. I'm fine with just having a simple life. I mean, I don't need to constantly reinforce my ego and constantly go out of my way to feel, somehow empowered because I'm going out and I'm doing cool stuff. I mean, so yeah, I mean, it's just there to pander. It's not designed to be intelligent. Um, it's just kind of just for it's like how all of those action movies, in particular the really bad ones um, that appeal to more the male demographic, because um, they can be the they can be the hero, and they can go and do awesome stuff, but then when you see that really all that the person is doing is just fighting, there's no depth to his or her character, then you see that there's really not a whole lot of substance to it. It's all show. And that's what the Sex and the City series of films is for women. It's all about inflating the ego and not about actually creating a story that suits the demographic. Um, and I think that's a huge issue. And I think it's definitely something that needs to be brought up, and as to why I think these films are really overrated, because again, I think they all are designed to be ego boosts and not designed to be really actual stories. So are stories that anybody can really relate to. Because again, these women, they just live on such a high cloud up there, and you almost want to like ring them down and go, can we come back to reality a little here? Especially when they're doing it in a real life setting, like they're having it take place in New York City. They're having it be around this 21st century, so to speak, age. Um, and yeah, I just don't see why um, why they can't just insert a story in here, um, instead of just constantly reinforcing the ego. So yeah, I think that's just something that I think is important to note, um, and why I thought that these films were just really just overblown. But yeah, I think though that's really all I can say about them. They they work for the demographics that they are trying to appeal to, but at the end of the day, there's not a whole lot to them, at least in my opinion. And I think that if more people like just see the films as what they are, um, as opposed to you know um, take away the whole ego boost that it gives you, because sometimes again too it makes me feel good when I see certain things happening that maybe appeal more to women. But at the same time, I separate my ego from the what is the story trying to represent? What's it trying to tell? And to be honest, I don't think Sex and the City is telling all that much. But I totally understand if it's a guilty pleasure. I totally understand if people enjoy it for whatever reasons, insert X, Y, and Z. But I personally feel that there's just a lot of it that's, I think, filler and not really there to serve a story. So yeah, I think that's really all though ultimately I can say. But again, if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And again, this is not against anybody who enjoys these films. I'm just saying that I have my own respected opinion on it, um and our humble slash respecting opinion on it. And I understand if people feel differently, but I'm all the reason I'm doing these things and being on YouTube And having this channel is just to express how I think about certain things when it comes to films, books, movies, and just random things. So, again, you can take that for what it's worth. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.